Well, Tom, I'm sure being a long-standing member of the Rockefeller apparatus and as a member of the Council on Foreign Relations of longstanding, you're fully aware that there is an elitist core in this country that has seen value in subsidizing communism.
We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex. The potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power exists and will persist.
It's good to be back at the Council on Foreign Relations. As Pete mentioned, I've been a member for a long time and was actually a director for some period of time. I never mentioned that when I was campaigning for re-election back home in Wyoming.
Chris, when can we start expecting some coverage on the Council on Foreign Relations?
Are you a conspiracy theorist?
Dr. Sutton, you wrote 3 series of books while you were a research fellow at the Hoover Institute. Can you give me basically the background of the content of these series?
Yes, the series I wrote at the Hoover Institution at Stanford University concerned the transfers of Western technology to the Soviet Union, and essentially comprised 3 individual books. Each book covers a period of time since 1917. They concerned the build-up of the 3 types of socialism: Bolshevik socialism in Russia, what we might call welfare socialism in the United States, and Hitlerian or National Socialism. And each book examines the financing and the contributions made by Wall Street, by international bankers, to the development of that specific form of socialism.
Well, their objective is to try to bring about a gradual transition in our society, a dissolving of sovereignty, and a moving steadily to the left on the political spectrum.
Well, who are they?
The elitist groups that I mentioned, particularly key individuals and policymakers in the Council on Foreign Relations.
Not at all. When we start talking about the Federal Reserve Bank and taxation, absolutely.
Little case. But why do you focus on things like that?
Because they're very important to our country. That's why our national sovereignty. Why am I focusing on that? Because that's what our country's all about. Our country's about the Constitution.
What is your concern about the Council on Foreign Relations? What's your concern about?
What's my concern about it? That they meet in private with public and private entities.
We should take nothing for granted. Only an alert and knowledgeable citizen can compel the proper meshing of the huge industrial and military machinery of defense with our peaceful methods and goals.
I know the head of it. He's a friend of mine. You think Richard Haass is scary? His wife is my book editor.
Richard Haass of the Brookings Institution. He served on the National Security Council under George Bush during the Persian Gulf War and has written a number of books about foreign policy and the role of the United States.
The best option at that point, I'm not saying it's the one they'll take, the one I would advise if I were still working there, would be to put together an informal coalition of those states that would be willing to use force against Iraq. I would say that's probably England, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, maybe Turkey. What you do is put together a lesser coalition. It would not have a formal UN resolution behind it in this instance, but it would have all the other resolutions that Iraq has violated.
But I've come to the conclusion that I see no threat to our national security. There's no convincing evidence that Iraq is capable of threatening the security of this country, and therefore very little reason, if any, to pursue a war.
One more sign that the post-Iraq era of American foreign policy is coming to an end. I can't predict a lot, but one thing I will predict confidently is that over the next couple of years, U.S. forces in Iraq wind down, not eliminate, but come down, and U.S. forces in Afghanistan build up. This review is also timed, by the way, to David Petraeus. He's about to take over Central Command the end of October.
The central front in the war on terror is not Iraq, and it never was. And that's why the second goal of my new strategy will be taking the fight to al-Qaeda in Afghanistan and Pakistan.
I want everyone in this room in San Francisco, California to understand something. The Democratic Party has the power right now to tell the president, and we don't need a vote to do this. I want it well understood, we don't need a vote to do this. we tell the President, Mr. President, 7 weeks ago we gave you $97 billion. Use that money. It takes $5 to $10 billion to bring the troops home.
Well, if I were making a prediction, I would guess that over the next 4 years, the President will gradually reduce U.S. forces in Iraq, and I would guess that that same President will gradually dial up the U.S. force presence in Afghanistan. And in some ways, that's the way it ought to be. As the situation in Iraq, interestingly enough, improves, it will allow us to draw down, but alas, we're actually lagging in Afghanistan where we are in Iraq.
I will send at least 2 additional combat brigades to Afghanistan and use this commitment to seek greater contributions with fewer restrictions from our NATO allies.
Richard, put this in perspective for us. What kind of message is the administration sending?
This is another signal to Iran of just how unhappy the administration is with their nuclear program, with their support for terrorism, with what they're doing in Iraq. And the administration is hoping that it puts pressure on Iran and perhaps galvanizes the rest of the world, or at least part of the rest of the world, to also join us.
Why is it that Senator Clinton, Senator Obama, Senator Edwards would all mimic the same speech that President Bush and Vice President Cheney have given? All options are on the table with respect to Iran.
The Council on Foreign Relations, I don't know if I'm an official member. I've spoken there before. It basically is just a forum where a bunch of people talk about foreign policy.
What's going on here? Think oil. Think Iraq, oil. Think Iran, oil. Because the reason why we're not leaving Iraq at this moment is because the United States wants to protect corporations' access to the oil of the people of Iraq.
Giving peace a chance only gives Saddam Hussein more time to prepare for war on his terms at a time of his choosing in pursuit of ambitions that will only grow as his power to achieve them grows.
Policy that we're endorsing here is the preemption. This should not be passed off lightly. It has been done to some degrees in the past, but not so explicitly, not so much put into law that we will preemptively strike another nation that has not attacked us. No matter what the arguments may be, this policy is new, and it will have ramifications for our future, and it will have ramifications for the future of the world.
One thing you benefit from, you do what I do, is you get to meet these people, and it's not all mysterious. That's the advantage.
Well, sir, I actually believe that we have public officials that should meet in public. That's why we have public meeting minutes.
And you know them for 30 years. You know who they are.
Absolutely.
Street people to you. That's the advantage of working in the world. You're getting to know who's running it.
That's the advantage of walking in the world. Getting to know who's running it.
For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy. It is a system which has conscripted vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations. Its preparations are concealed, not published. Its mistakes are buried, not headlined. Its dissenters are silenced, not praised.
He said that the objective, the secret policies, which we can't tell the American public because they're not sophisticated enough to see the value, is that through a steady result of erosion of New Deals, we bring the American society steadily to the left, right, and through a sound concept of benign containment, we merge into the vital center of the socialist left.
Here with us now, former National Security Advisor and author of Second Chance, 3 Presidents and the Crisis of American Superpower, Dr. Zbigniew Brzezinski. He's also Foreign Policy Advisor for the Obama campaign. He's also my father. He's also the father of my brothers, one an Obama advisor, the other a McCain advisor. We've got everything on the record, Dad, so thanks for joining us this morning. How are you?